There was also great sadness when the Ministry of Food left Colwyn Bay, emptying the hotels and large houses. The first victim of this change was the trams. They ended in 1956.
They did the last tram. We had a bit of a do, you know. It was amazing the number of people that came out and lined the route, you know, as it went off.
As the town tried to regain its former glory as a holiday resort, for teenagers it was an exciting time. Mike Hughes remembers the cafe culture.
The Jungle, that was a big one. Then just down the road there was another one called the Miami, which is slightly smaller. And then you had the Mexi. You'd put the music on the jukebox, and varied from Giant Pacemakers, Beatles, like I say, those searches, all the stuff that was out at that time. And you'd sit there drinking your coffee or your Coke. The atmosphere was dynamic.
In the early 60s, there were even new attractions. In Rhos-on-Sea, the world-famous Harlequin Puppet Theatre was established. It had been entertaining people in Eirias Park for many years, but the building in Rhos-on-Sea was the first ever purpose-built puppet theatre. The biggest attraction, however, was the Welsh Mountain Zoo, opened in 1962 on hills above the town. For Nick Jackson, whose parents had moved from Cheshire to open the new zoo, it was an exciting time.
He started with things like sea lions and chimpanzees, a small collection of reptiles, and we even in the early years had an elephant. Blodwyn, her name was. We were attracting something like 150, 160,000 visitors. I just remember it as being, to some extent, frantic. I was 12, 13, 14 in those early years. I had to go to school, unfortunately for me. I mean, I just loved being in the zoo, so all my spare time was out in the zoo.
But despite all these new attractions, it became increasingly obvious as the 60s went on that tourism was on the decline in Colwyn Bay. The change was gradual, but as fewer people visited, it underlined a significant shift in Colwyn Bay's future role.
Probably more into the 60s when people, of course, had started to have more money, international travel became more easy, cars were more prevalent. People didn't need to come to Colwyn Bay to have a good holiday. So all of a sudden, lots of these boarding houses became empty. The local landladies found it more and more difficult to make a living. The old hotels in Colwyn Bay Hotel, the St Enoch's and Alveston Hotel, all these sort of hotels started to find it very difficult.
The council tried to create new employment, firstly with the police headquarters and then increasingly developing an industrial park at nearby Mochdre, around Quinton Hazel Autopart factory. But in reality, there was great uncertainty about the future.
Various people had different ideas about how the town should develop, and so there was light industry brought in the Mochdre area. There was, of course, the attraction of the North Wales Police Headquarters was excellent. So there were people who thought, well, it's no longer a tourist town. There were those who wanted more tourism to be developed and assisted and helped. And I think at the end of the day, it just slipped through all those different roles and ended up not quite one thing or the other.
As the town declined, drastic solutions were needed. The building of the dual carriageway A55 through the centre was welcomed by many as essential.
The expressway had to be built. I can remember Colwyn Bay before it was built, and the main roads, Colwyn Bay, Abergele Road here, were just jammed during the season. You just were in one long queue the whole time, and the place was being strangled by traffic. Of course, during the building of the road, a lot of employment came into Colwyn Bay. A lot of disruption happened to Colwyn Bay, but we now have an excellent road bringing wonderful communications to Colwyn Bay, and it has helped in many ways.
But for many, the new road itself furthered the disintegration of Colwyn Bay.
And I thought, do they know what they're doing? You know, destroying, actually ripping Colwyn Bay apart. And it has had a big effect on Colwyn Bay, there's no doubt about that. But no, I didn't like it. The motorway took most of the character away from Colwyn Bay.
Despite all efforts, the town, with the collapse of tourism, was facing a crisis. The shopping centre was already a shadow of its former self, and further changes there dramatically illustrated how times had changed.
Commercial decisions which had been made by major chain stores such as Marks and Spencer's, who chose to go to Llandudno and to Rhyl, Other companies such as Next, major high street leaders have then followed that lead. Then a little bit later in the early 70s, along came the boom of the building societies, who took over one of the main shopping streets in Colwyn Bay, virtually turned it into a sort of commercial centre. That was Penryn Road, and virtually decimated what was left of quite a good little shopping centre.
By the 80s, another obvious sign of the problems was the change in usage of the old hotels and other large houses in the town.
We have a lot of old buildings, big old buildings, which have attracted speculators who have converted a lot of these buildings into smallish flats and have attracted, in fact, one particular speculator I do know and have heard about, actually advertised in towns other than Colwyn Bay, specifically for people on the dole, DSS people. They look to other forms of recreational entertainment, and a lot of it is drug-related, of course, sadly.
By today, Colwyn Bay has lost many of its finest institutions, like Penrose College. Some young people find it a challenge to run a business in the town.
The insurance is sky high for Colwyn Bay. I mean, you know, they don't want to know. They break a window and it's like, whoa, no insurance. You worry about it all the time. I mean, you know, you see the people walking past and you wonder who's going to come in and, you know, what they're going to try and do. You know, it's rough. It's not a very nice place, to be honest. I mean, with all the vandalism and the reputation it's got, it's not nice. I mean, I wouldn't want to grow up here now. I mean, you know, I've got a business here, but I wouldn't like to be growing up in Colwyn Bay.
Some of the elderly in Colwyn Bay like to look back at the town's Edwardian days at the beginning of the century.
We must not let nostalgia drag us back. We must forget the past. In fact, I think nostalgia, the word nostalgia 100 years ago in the past was thought of as a form of madness. And in many ways it can be. We must look to the future, be enthusiastic and optimistic.
Despite the problems facing Colwyn Bay, there are mixed feelings about the town's future direction.
It can build on its location. I think that's the crucial quality. It also has a quality of life aspect to it, which is witnessed by the growth in housing stock and by the boom in housing prices. I think those are the two main planks that it has to do.
They need to do something about the people that they let move into Colwyn Bay. I mean, all the HMOs and things like that, you know, they want to make more of an effort to screen the people coming into the town. I mean, it's a lovely town. It could be. The buildings have all got character, but unfortunately it's all being ruined by the dropouts.
The town has kept some vestiges of its former glory. Rydal School, the many fine houses and a beautiful location make some feel hopeful that the town can rebuild itself.
I certainly have great faith in the future. I think there is a wonderful potential. The town, the people involved with the regeneration and getting the town back on its feet and that have a responsibility to give it back its identity and make their minds up as exactly what it is and what it's going to do. So I think that's perfectly possible. It's a wonderful place to have a town. It's just in a most wonderful part of the country and a wonderful site on the North Wales coast. So it just has to have a wonderful future, and it just is a matter of people getting their ideas together.
So, with available houses, a seaside location and the convenient A55, Colwyn Bay can build a brighter future.
Colwyn Bay has suffered a great decline during the 20th century. Nevertheless, the town still has many advantages. Its attractive seaside position, its proximity to the A55, the varied industrial base of the region, and an excellent housing stock. If Colwyn Bay can capitalise upon its assets and regenerate the town centre, there is every reason why it should regain its confidence in the new century.